I think the first time I showed you how much we had spent in flooring on some of the motorcycles, like we could have bought the motorcycles in the interest that we had paid over
There
those
are
monthlies.
several of them that are in that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stores in that same exact boat.
Yeah. And I mean, that looks even more painful, you know, than the parts thing because, yeah.
Because you still got to pay the bank when you get rid of the thing.
We left off at, like, will you take the job? And I say yes. And then you turn to, are you sure you want this job?
Yes, there's a lot of that.
Right. So that's where we left off.
Yeah.
No, and I was sure. I had long talks with my wife about, you know, what it was going to entail because it was going to be a big task.
It's a huge life change.
Yeah.
It is a lifestyle change for sure. Because
especially from where I was actually at in my life, you know.
Yeah. And a dealership is like 24/7, 365
and it has been
all the time.
Since I've gotten here.
Yeah.
I have spent 24 hours a day at times.
Yeah. And I warned you beforehand. I did tell you, you sure you want to do this? It's going to suck.
Well, no, but it doesn't suck. I don't think it sucks.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, I mean, being a dealer is sometimes really tough. Sometimes it's a lot of fun.
I work 24 hours a day at my own shop.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's a regular thing.
Well, turns out it doesn't suck that much then.
Yeah. Doesn't suck.
There was just a lot to fix when you came into this place.
It totally was. I mean, there still is a lot, but we've accomplished a lot. It's been 5 months.
Yeah.
For me. 6 months for you.
6 months for me. Yeah. Well, we were July. You started toward the end of August.
August 21st.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, when Danny and I stepped in, it was really just like triage. We didn't, it wasn't like, let's fix all the fires. It was like, let's get the thing to stop dying.
Right.
And then you came in to be okay, how do we like fix it? How do we make it healthy enough to grow? And then just now, minutes ago, we got off a meeting with our now Onyx cohort, our group of stores that are helping each other do the same thing to make the plan for what the next 90 days is.
Right.
So I guess what I want to start off is when you took the job, some of the very first things I do remember, it was like week one, we had problem after problem. One of the biggest ones was the flood where the roof was missing.
They were in the midst of putting a new roof on, and there were portions of the shop that were open to the sky. And one day New Orleans did what it does, and it poured down rain, and there was literally waterfalls coming into the shop.
Yeah. Well, the worst part was we have these two large peaked roofs that come down to a V in the middle, so a ton of water is pouring into the middle. Yeah. Roofers had removed the middle, so everything else was still there, and they were holding a tarp up to try and catch the water, and that tarp was just held by a couple roofers, like with their fingernails trying to hold this thing, and it was just thousands of gallons of water.
Yeah. That
when it released, it exploded across the entire second floor, and everything rained inside the store.
It was cool, but not in a cool way.
Not in a cool way. It was definitely one of those moments of like, this is something I didn't expect to have happen. Like, holy shit. And I do remember I turned to you then. I was like, you sure you still want to do this? Because this is insane. Like, that was beyond anything we had anticipated.
Yeah. But but it was kind of funny.
I'm glad you accepted it that way. One of the big things that we were working on when you came in was like, we had recognized, and we talked about this in part one, we'd recognized that the community that we built around this is what made this store succeed and what made what supported the community. It was this nice like ecosystem we had created, and we needed to rebuild that. And so one of the very first things that we were like, our first big project was, it's crazy. It sounds like you came in August 21st. Is that it? First day? And then first week of September, we planned on having
September 6th,
the biggest party we could ever throw, which was like getting a Grammy award-winning band to come out and play, shutting down the street, doing all sorts of stuff.
Right. Yeah. But I think it was necessary because the goal coming in here was to restore, in a sense, the image of the shop. That was one of the biggest one of the biggest problems with the shop was that loss of reputation.
Yeah.
And and then of course everything that follows with that is, loss in sales, loss in service work, loss,
Yeah,
everything is, in this industry, and especially in this town, in this industry, yeah, your reputation is everything. You don't survive without it.
mm-hmm.
So restoring that was goal number one. And so when we did plan that event, we wanted it to be, sincere. And when I say big, I don't mean big as in it's grandiose, but big in this in the sentiment of it, in the
It was important.
the
It was
meaning. Yeah.
we called it the Rebirth for a couple of reasons. Actually, first we called it Rebirth because it was kind of the rebirth of the store and the community
exactly.
and all that stuff. But also then the band we got was called Rebirth Brass Band.
Yeah, that was you had actually titled the event already. You had said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna call it the Moto Julia Rebirth." And my first thought was like, "Oh, we got to get Rebirth to play."
I was like,
and you were like, "How's that gonna happen?" And I was like, "Oh, we will make it happen."
They're expensive. And
and then so that even was a little bit of evidence that that the community here as a whole did want, this dealership to come back, because even the band Rebirth, they when I called them and got, the rate for what it would be for the event, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And it actually was higher than our entire budget for the event. And so I'd let them know that, and they were like, "We want to be a part of this. So, you let us know what works for you so that we can do this and make it happen."
Yeah.
And then when it did happen and they did come out here and play, they were appreciative.
Yeah. To be a part of it.
Yeah, to be a part of it. They said, "Thanks for, letting us be a part of this." Because a lot of those, a lot of the members, are either motorcycle riders or no motorcycle riders. They knew the store.
Yeah.
Every one of them was like, as soon as I said, where we were from, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know the store." So yeah, I think that doing it that way,
Yep.
is what helped make it a success.
Yeah, we brought Greg through. It's actually the first time Greg was the owner of the building and the business. That was the first time Greg had been back since we started the tournament. Actually, since way longer than that, since he's like been here to see the operation in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool to see him here, and that he like recognized that, like, oh, it's happening. Like, like there's energy back in the dealership. The customers are excited. The amount of people who came to both you and I and like thanked us profusely for like, all right, we're so excited that this is back, and we're like rebuilding the community. I've been hoping for something like this, which, man, felt awesome. And then after it ends, it's like the reality of, oh, like there's still a lot of work to do. Like a lot of work.
There's a lot of work to do physically to the shop. There's a lot of work to do with the business of the portion of the shop. I mean,
the processes.
Yeah, the processes and
the accounting
and everything. Yeah, I mean, from top to bottom.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything that didn't need revamping.
There's an area above the service department, which I'm sure every single dealership has, or I know every dealership has, an area that just like has been collecting crap for so long of takeoff parts and warranty parts and random bikes that got abandoned that we now keep. Like it just grows and grows and grows. And that's the same stuff that was there when I sold it, and it had gotten so incredibly out of hand. And so that was one of the very first things of like, we literally have to just start throwing everything away.
Yeah, and it had spread. It wasn't just upstairs. The entire downstairs was just filled with. I mean, it's. I guess I won't harp on this too much, but it was just a lot of shit.
It was, and so one thing that I mean, if for dealers who are in that same situation of like have a bunch of stuff, what we had done was we had our team kind of break up and start pulling stuff that had part numbers on it. And anything we could identify as a part number, we made a list of all those, we organized them, we identified what the costs of those products were, and we actually used a wholesaler called Suncoast Cycle Supply, and they actually bought those pallets full of stuff for pennies on the dollar. Like, we're not talking about making money on this, but it at least felt a little better than just throwing it all away.
Just throwing it away,
It was like, at least we get something.
Yeah, which was part of the directive was like, just throw it all away.
Yeah. But man, it's like you and I had that same problem. It's like, in theory, we could say, all right, you know what? I'm not going to care about any of those things. And you walk upstairs and you go, this is a brand new Rage
Yeah.
Fender Eliminator kit for a Panigale. Like, this is value. It's never been opened. We're just
Yeah.
going to throw this away.
Yeah.
And so, like, as soon as we start looking at the things, which every dealer does, they go, wait, this might have some value though, but it hasn't moved in 10 years. So
Right.
like, so the idea that there was at least somebody's gonna give me some pennies for this thing was
Yeah,
like,
that was-
okay, fine.
That made it, that actually made it feel like it did. It made it feel good.
Yeah, it did.
It wasn't that that it made it feel not as bad. It actually made it feel good. It's like, all right,
We got something.
There is something coming out.
There
of
is
this.
something coming out of the end, which, you know, it's still happening. So we cleared out the ancillary takeoff stuff, the stuff that was upstairs. And now we're going through the stuff that's actually in inventory.
Yeah.
The parts that have been here for over a decade that have just never been removed. Some of them have been written down or written off already, but like
Right.
physically they're still being counted all the time. They're still being looked around. They're still cluttering the space of the parts department. And so now that's the big cleanup.
Yeah.
But that's happening now.
Yeah.
Another one that, dude, oh my God, this felt so necessary. The service department had fallen to shambles. It was disgusting in that service department. And you just completely turned the place around. So what did that look like? What did you have to do?
Yeah, I mean, so I do multiple things. I mean, I've always, you know, had the motorcycle business, but I've also done architectural metal work and, you know, worked in trades, you know, and these are all things I did even while
Yeah.
having a shop.
Yeah.
It's just, you're always learning things, you know. So yeah, I looked in there and I was like, this place needs to be completely redone. So I pulled one weekend after closing on Saturday. Everyone went home. I stayed here. I stayed the entire weekend and pulled every single thing out of the shop. It was completely empty. Painted the walls, epoxied the floor, and then just when they came to work on Tuesday morning, it was to an empty shop that had been repainted and epoxied. And I, you know, I said, hey, now the shop goes back together with intention. Everything has a place.
Yep.
And the idea of it was not just to make it look organized, but to be functionally organized. And I asked the techs, like, hey, this is your shop. Let's put things in here that work, that is going to help you work more efficiently.
You know, it was one of the moves that we did that makes a ton of sense is very simple, was like, let's move the tire machine.
Yeah.
And I think about that one a lot because, you know, honestly, the things that slowed our technicians down wasn't just how many steps they are away, which you came from manufacturing, and the idea that you have to go from,
you know, you're cutting 500 parts and your cart's sitting 10 feet away. The cart that's on wheels, by the way, and you're walking back and forth, grabbing one part at a time, and you could just wheel that cart right up next to you. Anyway, so
And
that mentality, those literal seconds add up to hours and hours.
Yeah.
But
But I also thought of it as like, when the tire machine is in the corner of the shop, it means that technicians have to cross each other to get to it, which creates more distraction than if it was just centrally located and everybody's walking directly to that and directly back to the lifts. And so it might not be that much of a change, but it changes the few steps. It changes the distractions that happen along the way. And I think most importantly, and I think what really has stuck with this team, or is beginning to really sink in with the team, is like, when you ask them to do stuff differently, but their environment is the same, that it's really easy to fall back in the exact same habits they were doing before. But you put them in an entirely new environment and was like, and now we work differently than we did before. And so like, they don't have this ingrained experience of walking to the same shitty, gross shop with red walls. It's like, now it's a whole different like mindset when they walk in, and now we can start to set the expectation differently than what they had been doing before.
Yeah.
So that, from what I saw on that team, that's when, at least in service, that's when like you really saw people light up, like, oh, this is like really changing.
Yeah. And light up in a positive way, to actually feel good about coming into work again.
Yeah.
And the enthusiasm, you know, that followed it, really, you know, was it was a cool thing to see, and then it made them more involved with the procedures and
Mm-hmm.
processes and how we can make those better and stuff like that. So they had more input, and then they felt like their input was being taken seriously,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean, it all works together to help achieve the goals and get to where we want to be.
Yep.
Not to say that it's been without its struggles and pitfalls and ups and downs that have been. We
Yep.
you know and specifically talking about the service department, we did all these changes. Everybody was feeling good. You had come up with some new processes to help streamline things. Everything seemed like it was going so good, and we were feeling good about it. And like, oh man, did you see that? So and so was doing this, and so and so was doing that, and so that, I think it partially, my fault is I was like, oh, and maybe it made me a little bit complacent. But then all of a sudden, in a span of like 3 days, it like just dropped off a cliff.
Yeah. It just starts falling
I
apart.
mean, one failure after another fuck up. It was just like, what is actually happening here? You guys
Yeah.
are fucking with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
It was like you've forgotten every single thing we talked
like
about.
every single thing. And I don't know if I have the answer to it, but I think maybe it was partially, my being a little bit complacent and like, hey, yeah, we achieved this, and now I can focus on something
it was
else.
such a short period of time.
It was
I don't
such a
think
short
you
period of
didn't
time.
have enough time to like
Well,
be complacent
because
that
I had
way.
to do so many, I had to do the service, I had to deal with parts, I had to
Yeah,
deal
yeah,
with the
yeah.
sales
So it's like I'm
floor, I
not
had to
paying
do,
attention to that one for
yeah.
a
So I
second. I'm
like,
paying attention to this one. Yeah.
since I come from the service side of it, for me it was like, all right, that's the first one I'm
Yeah,
jumping on
we
because I
got it
know I can
dialed.
fix that. I
Yep.
can not fix it, but I know I can, get this to a point where then I can go over here and like,
Yeah.
focus on something else or learn, some of the things that I need to learn about suddenly becoming a general manager of a 5 brand
Yeah.
dealership.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and so I guess that's maybe complacent's not the right word, but maybe feeling a little overconfident that I
Yeah.
had achieved at least a certain point of what we were doing back there. And then another part of it is I think they might have just been like, oh, because obviously, when they do things successful, you let them know, and maybe that just came too soon, or maybe I did too much of like, hey, you guys are doing a great job,
I think you're
and
putting
then
too much on yourself there, John.
well, but that's what this role is. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. It is.
whenever I talk to a client or a customer, whether it's a customer telling us that we've done great things, or whether it's someone telling me how pissed off they are about the shitty experience they had, I never ever say it like, oh, well, he shouldn't have done that, or
Yeah.
she shouldn't have done that. It's always like, I'm sorry, we should have done
Yeah. Of
better.
course.
So it's not putting it on myself. It's just that is part of the job, is that it's put on me. That's the position that I hold.
Yeah. You
Is that
gotta.
it is always going to be put on me.
Yeah. Gotta make it better. And there's somebody at the top who's responsible for
Yeah.
all of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I agree.
And and it works, you know, both ways, is that I take, I take those punches, for the team, but then the person that did fuck up, then, they hear from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And then
like,
we gotta
it's
fix
like,
that
yeah,
problem.
I mean, I don't go back there and yell at people, but I
Yeah.
definitely convey,
The
you know,
importance of what we're doing.
yeah.
I think one thing that you and I talk a lot about, and we try to get across, and I'm surprised sometimes how difficult it is to translate, is that, what we're doing here, actually, I mentioned it in the hiring thing that we did yesterday. The machines matter, but the experience matters more, like far more. The experience that people come in, and if they have, they have a bad experience. One example, there was an email that came through the other day. We had one customer who said, we had done the service, but we didn't replace the air filter, and we should have, like, it should have been done. And the immediate response in an email was not what it should have been. It was like, oh no, the tech did that. And I was like, whoa, what the? No, that's not the response. Like, the customer, if this is how the customer feels, is this is their reality, whether we did or we did not replace it, that is their reality. We have to fix that problem. Like, and we have to jump on it. We have to overreact. We have to make sure that like that customer knows that is not how we do business. Instead, we can't say they're wrong. Like, what's that going to do? So that ethos is, I thought, would be easier to get across. And in reality, it's not. And I don't really know yet what it is what is the key to get someone to understand that we exist here to give motorcyclists incredible experiences.
Yeah.
And the idea is if we give them great enough experiences, they're going to keep coming back. They're going to bring their friends, and that's how the business grows.
Yeah.
We're not going to grow the business by going, no, we're going to charge you for that. We're not going to do it. Like, that's not how the business makes money or succeeds. I mean, we could make that extra $5 for not doing that job, but we're never going to get that customer back again. And it was infuriating to see that come out of this store and be like, that's what we said? Like, why would you ever say that?
Yeah. I think you and I have the benefit, and anyone who has been in this industry or a business owner, probably of any kind, and had employees, is that we have the benefit of experience. And so with someone, that, is either new to the position or even new to the industry altogether, that, when we tell them, like, this is what we want the customer experience, they always agree. And it's like, that's what I want to provide. But then when, the, customers are complain or this or that, and then I think they're just a natural thing to maybe just become defensive. And so,
I mean, I get it.
And so I get why it happens. And it is like, it feels disappointing in the moment that, we feel like we've trained them up into, to recognize these things, but then we're all human, and they're going to fall back to, normal, human reactions. And then the hope is that, that once they go through a few of those and then they see how you and I handle it, and they're like, oh yeah. And then they see how the customer then responds to us.
Mm-hmm.
They were mad, like, talking to them, and then they came to us, and we approached it this other way, and they witness all that, and then they could see like, oh, okay, so now, now I can handle it that way moving forward, kind of thing. So I think it'll come in time, but then also there's just some of the people that aren't going to get it. And, we're going to go through people, until you find the right ones. And then, as we've talked about before, then when you find the right ones, it's usually because they want to go off and do something else.
Yeah, because they're that self-starter. They get it. They
they want their own thing.
They have bigger ambitions, but they have the drive, and that's the drive that we need in those roles to find those people that have that.
Yeah, so we want to find those people, and we want to find them in the beginning of their stages, so that we have them for a while before they do go off and do their own thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to continue to grow people. Like, there's a lot of people who I've worked with throughout my career in this that are now like in other areas around the country doing really cool stuff, running operations. Danny was a great example, right? Yeah. Danny opened his own shop, ran a really cool thing for a very long time, but he started here. And I think the most growth that we had in all those 17 years was when Danny and I worked next to each other, because he was the one who was pushing me harder.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, why do you do it this way? And I go, shit, I don't know why we do it that way. Yeah. Like, let's do it different. If you did it different, how would you do it? And now we can creatively solve that. So I do think that finding the people that have that, like, have the entrepreneurial spirit or that like fire in their belly, you got to realize that they're not going to be there forever, but man, it's going to be a magical ride while everybody's together.
Yeah.
And so, I think right now we're in a weird spot too, where I think we've identified that we need some entrepreneurial, really sharp people. And maybe those people are here. Those people haven't stepped up and shown it yet.
Yeah.
Necessarily. So we've seen some pretty awesome stuff from some people, but I think that, if this place is going to get to the level that we're talking about, that it's going to take being able to tell somebody, show them the vision, them understand the vision, and be able to like bring it in that way. It sounds really vague when I say it out loud, but it sounds really defined in my head.
because the vision you're talking about, you see that in your head.
I do. I do. I like see exactly what the store is going to be and what it needs to be
Yeah.
and how we need to get there.
Yeah,
And we lived it.
Yeah.
You know, like we have lived when this was that way.
Right.
And I
Well,
think we
and
can
it's
get
like
there.
we said, you know, in the last episode, you know, when we were talking about, you know, JT and Patrick and
Yeah.
Luke and James, you know, that it's just happened.
Yeah.
You know, all of those things came together
Yep.
at the right time. And, you know, and then so for us, our job here now is
To be the
try to,
catalyst.
yeah, to try to bring those people in. And like I said, we're going to end up going through people, and some people will be the right fit and some people won't.
Yeah.
And some people will be the right fit and not stay very long. And
Yeah.
some people will be the right fit and stay for a long time. And even some of those people that you're like, oh yeah, this person's going to go off and do their own thing, might be here for 5 years and decide they just really like it here and don't want to go do their own thing.
Yeah.
So
Or they leave and they come
occasionally,
back and
they
that
leave
stuff
and come
happens.
back. And,
Yeah.
you know, so you get all that too.
So that was the kind of personnel stuff we had going on. But I want to get back to the cleanup because the
Yep.
cleanup, I think, has been, you know, our objective was that first 3 months of the turnaround was get it healthy, or sorry, get it alive, keep it alive, get it to break even. Second half of 2025, or sorry, the rest of 25, that last quarter of 2025, what has been clean it up. Like don't enter into 26 with the like behemoth of inventory and all this stuff that has been weighing us down year after year. It's like major unit inventory that it keeps getting older and it's not getting more attractive and it isn't getting cheaper. And so why enter into a new year with all of this stuff burdening us? Because you're not gonna be able to grow with that like continued burden. Like you can't make the shop cool if all the products you have on the showroom floor are 3 years old, you know, like, and we just couldn't at the time, we couldn't afford to like bring more stuff on top of it. We had just too many units.
You just can't. And then you had the pressures of the manufacturers wanting you to take more stuff. And it's like, if I have all this stuff right here that, you know, hasn't sold for whatever reasons, you know, I can't just pile on top of that. And then, you know, then this stuff will also still never sell.
Yeah.
Because now all the new stuff is here. And, you know, so we need to cut that loose first.
Yeah. So we've been doing, and this has been a huge lift and a lot of work, but we've been doing a lot of work on right sizing inventory to make that happen. One of those was a parts, accessories, and clothing inventory, which has been, you know, basically removing everything that hasn't sold in the last, it should be 12 months, all OBS, but we're doing 18 months. So a year and a half. It has not sold in a year and a half. It's leaving. It's about $155,000 worth of stuff. For some dealers, that's a tiny amount. For some, that's a really big one. But obsolete parts inventory is an industry-wide problem. And I think it's because there's too many stores without the proper inventory management plans. And so in the parts role, it has been, how do we let's remove this, let's count it all, let's remove it from inventory, and we're gonna do the same thing. We send that off to wholesale. We're gonna get pennies on the dollar for it. So it's gonna hurt a hell of a lot more because we're taking a huge hit on the P&L on the balance sheet when we're getting rid of that. We'll get a little bit of cash back out of it. But how do you not get back in that position again? Like, how do we not end up with 500 Triumph t-shirts like we have right now? You know, like.
Yeah, there has to be, you know, which we're implementing and which is heavily driven, you know, by you, and some of these processes that you're coming up with is, you know, just the right aging strategy. And then what was brought up in our little managers forum this morning is also, you know, the purchasing strategy too.
Yeah.
You know, they go hand in hand, obviously. I mean, it seems like that's obvious, but sometimes when you're so concerned with the inventory itself, you know, you lose sight of the fact of how you're ordering properly. And efficiently.
Yeah, actually, there's been a bunch of things that we've built I've built these tools for us to visualize both the problem and the strategy to solve them. And so in parts, we've got one where, you know, when I get in a parts order now, we can enter in that purchase order number. We can enter in the arrival date. We can determine what we want our turn rate to be on that stuff. And it will tell us a calendar day for every single time that we need to reduce the price now, we need to merchandise it more effectively, or we need to send it back to the manufacturer. And it says it on there. And that's all based on the return terms of the manufacturer, all that information. And so basically you enter that in, it gives you the dates, you click a button, it adds it to your Google Calendar so that you get an alert so that your parts manager goes, oh shit, today's the day. I got to contact this manufacturer and send back all this apparel that didn't sell. Because I think that's where stuff goes sideways. We order these big stocking orders for parts and accessories, and then it didn't sell. Maybe we didn't merchandise it well. Maybe we didn't sell it appropriately, but the thing is still here. It's already paid for, and it's just tied up cash. It's cash we can't use anymore, and it's inventory that just rots and, again, becomes less attractive.
Yeah.
The way scarier one has been major unit inventory.
Yep.
Because it's not like parts. It's not like the cost is already covered. You know, we paid cash for those parts, but our major units we're paying flooring on.
Yeah.
And some of I think the first time I showed you how much we had spent in flooring on some of the motorcycles, like we could have bought the motorcycles in the interest that we had paid over.
There are several of them that are in that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stores in that same exact boat.
Yeah, and I mean that looks even more painful, than the parts thing, because
you still got to pay the bank when you get rid of the thing.
So like even when you start clearing that stuff out, it's like, well, yeah, that money isn't really doing anything except how much am I adding to that?
Yeah,
that is coming out of our pocket.
Yep. So something that's there's a couple strategies on fixing this problem. All of it still hurts.
Yeah.
All of it really hurts when you've got a product that you can't sell for the cost that you have in it right now. Like you're gonna take a loss, right?
Yeah.
That's just one piece of it. Then you factor in how much you've been paying every single month in flooring. Then you factor in curtailments when you're just paying cash direct for it. Granted, you're paying down the principal at that point. But
then you factor in BMW, who doesn't have curtailment; they have maturity.
Yeah,
and then when it hits that, you pay
the whole thing
entirely.
off. It's one big old chunk. Yeah, I mean, that can put stores out of business very quickly if that stuff isn't managed, and all of a sudden we got curtailments, or we got like one big payoff that we don't have cash to cover payroll. How am I going to pay for that particular motorcycle? That's how dealerships end up with chains on their front doors when their employees show up.
Yeah,
and so I guess. One of the first things, I guess, before we get into like how are we planning on avoiding this? And not to say that we've got the silver bullet, but like we at least have a plan we're going to talk about. But it's the end of the year for us right now, and we don't want to carry that bad inventory into 2026. So we're biting the bullet on a lot of stuff and sending stuff to auction. Again, we're going to take $10,000 for a bike, and we're going to have to spend $20,000 to pay the bank to pay it off. I mean, it's going to suck. It's going to be really hard, but we wanted to be a little bit healthier when we enter into the year. But there's also bikes that we're going to keep, because like what we get at auction is even worse than what we would be, like worse than the hit we were going to take.
Yeah.
Probably that $10,000 hit is one of those, like, it's just too painful to do. So we're not going to do that. But I also don't want to still have an old bike on the showroom floor that's not going to sell, that we're going to have to drop our price on, and it's going to hurt us by a huge margin in 2026. And so there is an accounting principle called conservatism, and it's the idea that your major unit inventory as an asset should be the lower of either the cost or the current market value, which does mean, now granted, it looks horrible on your P&L. It's not going to be great on the P&L, but if we know that motorcycle we have down there, our cost is $16,000 and we're only going to get $10,000 at auction or unloading it. If we can use Kelley Blue Book, or we're using a consistent pricing source where we can prove that in an audit, or you're using NPA buy bids every single time, like we've got some proof that there is a number this is how we came up with it. If I can do that, then I can write down the cost of that major unit. Now that's still it's going to show up as a drop in on my balance sheet. It's also going to show up as an increase in my cost of my major units. So in inventory shrinkage or a cost of goods is going to go up as well. So it's going to it's going to make 2025 look worse than it already was in a store that had a really hard 2025.
Right.
It's not solving my cash, my bank problem. I still have to pay off the rest of that unit. But at least I'm setting myself up for that when I'm selling units in 26, after we have restructured, after we've cleaned everything up, after we've made this thing nice and healthy, and like we did all the deep cuts that were necessary, we can actually start to heal in 2026 because we're not just carrying this huge debt into it.
We are eliminating the problem that existed that got the dealership to the point it was at. We're fortunate to be able to do this. Why start off the new year with the same thing, because then all we're going to be doing is still chasing the same goal of trying to get rid of these old bikes, and not focusing on what we should be focusing on, and that's selling new bikes. And so if we're gonna do it, just rip the Band-Aid off and
just rip the Band-Aid off.
Start fresh. I mean, and that is an absolute privilege to be able to say, this is what we're doing. I mean, that's
not a lot of stores can do that.
There's, I mean,
especially
99.9999% of stores cannot say that. So
we are very fortunate, very fortunate to be able to do that.
The benefit of sharing this is that what we're doing going forward can, be helpful to
can allow us to not get in that situation again.
Can be helpful for other dealers to say like, hey, this is what we did, this worked, this didn't work, but it allows us to come up with those processes without this other baggage, like sort of holding us back from being able to see clearly, like, hey, this is how this should work.
Yeah, exactly. Which does bring us to like, what is that new strategy? Like, what is that thing we're going to do?
It's aging strategies for major units, aging strategy for parts, and the major unit one is obviously the biggest concern. And I think you've come up with a great strategy, and not that it's like reinventing the wheel or anything. But it's about taking those strategies and being consistent with them, but also making the right tools and processes to be able to implement them. And making it easier to implement those, because doing it too much the old school way, you miss something here and there. And to be able to take advantage of technology,
So the strategy that we're doing is basically, we determined that we don't want to have any unit over 18 months old. So nothing will be here at 18 months, which means that we need to strategize that at 18 months, it is at auction. Now, of course, we don't want to just get a new motorcycle in and send it out.
And the goal is to be like, well, we know we can at least get auctioned.
We know we'll lose a lot of money. Good. So the idea is, okay, if there's never going to be a bike here over 18 months old, and then we need to make sure that this at month 17, the selling price of that vehicle is essentially the same price we would get at auction, because I would rather move that bike locally. And we're still losing our ass on that. That is way, way, way below cost. Auction is still 30, 40% below what actual cost is. So we don't want to take that number, but I would rather get a customer out of that than just send it to auction and get nothing out of it, right? So by month 17, we're basically to be selling that unit at the same price that we're going to get, that we would get at auction. And we've projected that price being essentially 30% below cost, 32-ish%.
35,
So that number, that kind of graph, we made this tool to project all this for us, which is really helpful. People could figure it out on their own as well, but the dealers that we're working with, like that little group, we're sharing these tools around so that we can start making our plans. And so that's, if you think of it as like the beginning of when a unit arrives, month 0, that bike is for sale for MSRP. And then you think month 17, that bike is for sale at auction price, then there's a nice little line between those two. And so we created the tool that allows us to identify what that line is, and most importantly, how to step that line over time, which means that we can dial in for every single month. The price of that vehicle can drop over time until it gets to the point where we're at set month 17. It's at this number. It didn't sell. NPA's got it, right?
Right.
And so that is a whole new, I mean, I think people do that concept in theory, but I've never seen it done in the way that we're now attempting to do it, which is like quite methodically. Every single thing in inventory does that, because we now built a tool that tells us on this day, it will be this. So every month we go through, readjust those prices, which kind of creates this whole new like concept where, okay, it's ultimately supply and demand, right? We're not saying hold the margin until we realize we have to unload it, hold it at full MSRP, and then just drop it to nothing. It's like, okay, this thing has been on the showroom floor, which is exactly what was happening. Now it's, hey, it's been on the showroom floor for 60 days, for 90 days. Nobody's bought it yet. Price goes down. We're actually going to do it as a month-to-month thing. So it's been on the floor for 30 days. It's been on social media. We've called people who are interested. We've been like shaking trees for it. All right, cool. We got to get this thing out within the first 6 months. That's when we can still have front-end margin. After 6 months, it's below cost. And like we're just trying to stop the bleeding, and we're hoping OEMs will help us with any back end. But really, it's like stop the bleeding after 6 months, basically. So month one, this is the price of it. You know what? Nobody bought it yet. That means that maybe the demand isn't as high as we thought it was. So let's bring it down. Did that make it work? If not, we bring it down. And so that automated system creates not only this supply and demand curve, but also think about it like when we quote a customer for a unit and we say, okay, this unit's $25,000. And they go, I don't think I'm going to do that. Not a problem. I've got them in the system. We told them about the price. Couple days later, it's a new month, number changes. I can give that customer a call and get, hey, we just readjusted the prices. This is what it is. So now we have these opportunities to re-engage those customers multiple times while they're in that area where we could actually still, we could still make money on it, and then or continue to contact them as we are not making money on it, but we're getting to that price.
Get it to the point where at least it doesn't go to auction.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you think, oh, wait a second. What if I've got a customer who says, I don't want to spend 25,000 on it, but I'd buy it for 22. Then because we know the graph for every single individual customer, we can just say, oh, 22, you enter that number in, it tells you exactly the date that price is going to happen for this customer. So I say, oh, all right, 6 months from now, that number is going to hit this. I'm going to put you on my list to call you in 6 months. You will get that motorcycle at that price. If it sells before then you don't get the motorcycle at that price, but that's your decision. You're not negotiating against me. It's quite literally a supply and demand curve. And it's all about making sure that our inventory never goes stale, and I'm not paying more money to the bank than I'll ever put in the bank myself, which is what's happening with flooring right now in every store. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
And it might not work at all.
And then the same in parts. We have an AG strategy on parts.
That's the alerts.
Yep.
The alerts behind moving stuff.
And
one thing we talked about in our group today, Justin brought it up, which is a really great point, is we've got this strategy for managing the inventory now, which becomes, he called it a reactive strategy. I don't think it's necessarily reactive strategy right now is what we're doing in the current moment of like sending stuff to auction, writing stuff down, just trying to fix the problem. That's definitely reactive. Yeah. And now we're talking about putting in this process of adjusting price based on demand automatically. And I feel like that's pretty proactive. But what's really proactive too is making sure that we're buying the right product and the right quantity based on what we know this store is actually capable of, and not just essentially being beholden to every single motorcycle that every single OEM wants you to take.
Yeah. And I mean, again, to another point he made is a 400 unit store is a 400 unit store if you look over time. And that was evident even just recently. We were talking about about like where our sales, because I haven't been here for the whole year, obviously, where our sales are going to be for this year. And from what you talked about, even in your guys' heyday, like what your sales were, and the numbers are astonishingly close.
Yeah.
And that's,
same numbers, different margin size.
Yeah, different margin sizes.
Yeah.
But
I've seen stores pick up.
It. Yeah, no.
I've seen stores pick up numbers, but it's pretty common. In market general, size is...
your market is your market, and granted, I mean that's not a blanket statement for every single dealership out there, but especially with smaller dealerships, you can gauge pretty well, and so that can help. And I think his point was that helps guide you in your purchasing.
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah. So we need to dial in the purchasing strategy.
Yeah.
You know, we need to make some clearly defined rules. And it's not that we need rules. I don't know. I mean, let me say it this way. I, I know that I need rules just so that when I'm making decisions, I've got some framework to fall back on. Because when I'm getting the call of like, oh, it's time to order, you know, the second half of 2026's units, and I know it's January, but this is what you got to get. Like when that call happens, it's like, oh shit, what if what do you have holdback money that I'm not going to get? Okay, well, let me make this decision quickly, and I never have the resources or the framework that I really need to make the most informed decision. And so now what we're really doing is we're trying to take all of that historical data and be much more methodical with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that in this process, there are some stores that have some really cool stuff, really cool ways of identifying what stuff they want to order and what they want to get in. But it's still, I mean, you and I are service guys. And it's like, here's the book. Here's how it gets fixed. Here's how the motor works. I know exactly what needs to happen to make this thing fix the problem. And the first time I stepped into a sales department and we were like doing our first order, I was like, okay, where are the facts in this? I was like, there's no facts. It is literally like, what do you think you're going to sell? I don't know. Do you think the pink one's going to do better than the black one? Like, we just guess? We just come here and we just guess at what we think is going to work? Like, that seems kind of crazy. And granted, I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
But what can we do to at least
as
give
you
ourselves...
discovered, even with valuing bikes at
I don't think I could share that publicly. I don't know if they want that information out. But there are some valuations of vehicles that a lot of dealers and banks use to determine numbers that is damn near made
about
up.
the same.
Yeah, and it is surprising when you look behind the curtain and you're like, oh, that's what Oz
What's the
looks
value
like.
of that bike? Color is it? It's pink. Oh, what's worth less than the black one?
Yeah. So I mean, there are some like NPAs, I think a great example because they have good data of a tremendous amount of auction data on most stuff.
Yeah.
And like some stuff, they've got bikes that they don't sell as many of. Like we got some adventure touring bikes down there, Triumph Adventure Touring, the Tigers. There's just not enough data on how much they're going to get at auction. So the prices we get on them are just like, oh, man, that's going to sting when we have to remove that one because it's sat here for 2 years and it's not moving and it's priced that way on the website. We're trying to get rid of it, but it's just like we have to flush it. God, it's going to hurt.
Yeah. Well, that might be where they're getting their data. It's like, well, you want to sell me what? A 2-year-old?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
pulling up from the other one.
These things are not very valuable.
Yeah, exactly. God, that's pretty rough. But yeah, I mean, I think the plan that we have moving forward, we've actually got our plan sitting in front of us on a screen right here. Me and John just sat in, like I mentioned, with the meeting with a handful of other dealers that we have now done the same type of delve study that we did on the store to do the turnaround. We wrote a 12-month journey. So basically where we want the company to be in 12 months. And then we break it down to a 30-day roadmap. And the roadmap, basically we pick out the 3 biggest ROI opportunities across financial, inventory, and sales penetration health of each department. So like 9 variables. We pick out the top 3, and then we make 6, what we call turns, like 6 changes we're going to enforce that are smart goals. They're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, they're time bound. And so basically ours for us as this store was, we're going to do this removing of non-current inventory. We're going to do a major unit inventory management strategy for buying and selling like we talked about. So that's all getting in place. We're going to have a big focus on F&I per unit sold. And so like, how do you do that? Well, we're going to bring in trainers like we had Steve Dodds here before. Like we're going to get that support to make sure that the team has everything they need to bring those numbers up. Removing the old parts inventory, because one of our goals is increasing the parts turns. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest, what we call the waypoints, like the top 3. So in order to increase the turns, you got to decrease the inventory and increase the sales. So those are 2 other pieces we're working on. And then an increasing of jobs for repair order. And this is the formula, this idea of like having 6 primary things that we know are going to affect our biggest return on investments was the formula that we used to turn the store around. And now we're using that same formula to say, what if we got a group of dealers together and every 3 months we make another plan like this? Like we look at the biggest 3 ROIs, We write the strategy. We continue to meet with each other to hold each other accountable to make sure that we're doing those things. And so every week we're going to meet up, or every 2 weeks we're going to meet up, and there's going to be like you, John, are going to have to answer to, okay, what's the latest on the F&I per unit sold or the major unit inventory strategy for buying and selling? Like, is that defined now? How is it working? Is there that 15% increase in pack sales like we talked about? And I think that's the advantage that like some really good dealer groups have. But to be a small independent shop, you don't get that.
Right.
You know, you're just holding yourself accountable. You don't know what to measure against too. And so I'm excited to start to have our group together and potentially help other stores do that same thing. And then we get to say, hey, check it out. We actually did this inventory like price down strategy that is being utilized right now and it's working. Use the tool to try it in your store. But we got to make sure it works first.
That's why we're here.
That's exactly why we're here.
But yeah, I mean, that is why we're here. We're doing this part of the thing anyway, is to come up with those strategies and the tools for them, and to road test them and make sure that it's what works for us.
Yeah.
You know, and if it works for us, then be able to share with people and say like, hey, this worked for us.
Yeah. So we'll share we're going to share the wins and the losses. Actually, speaking of losses, we tried to do a casting call. So we used to do back in the previous TTRNO days, I used to do these casting calls to hire people. And the casting calls were basically, it would be an evening event, like on a Wednesday night, would invite people behind the scenes of the shop to see if they're interested in a career in the motorcycle industry. And we would usually get like 25, 30 people to show up every time. We'd do them twice a year. And we would basically, the first half of it would be, let's tell you about the store. And let's tell you what it's like to work here. Let's tell you what our values are, what's going on. Let's introduce you to the team. Let's give you a little tour behind the scenes. You kind of get the whole feel for it. Then we take a break. People eat some pizza, hang out. And if people like what they heard, like we told them everything. We told them how much money you're going to make, how hard you have to work, what we're expecting. And if after the break, you still are interested in working here, then great, stick around for the second half. If not, it's great knowing you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for seeing behind the scenes. And that way we got a lot of customers who just wanted to really know what it's like to work here, which is cool to show them like, you're a loyal customer. You want to see behind the scenes? Come on. So, but then the second half would be them introducing themselves, and then would teach them a little bit more about our strategies and what we do, and like relationship building and like form, family, occupation, recreation, motivation. We'd teach them all that stuff. We would do a role play with them, would bring them back, would see how they did. Then I'd get the entire team together. After all the attendees left, all the employees of the dealership would come together, and we would write on the board all the attendees' names across the top of the board, and then across, like down the side, we write all the employee names. We would make a big grid. We would ask each employee if they would want to work with that person and where they would probably fit. Right. So it was this like big mass group interview, and we found incredible talent. People got really engaged. That's how I found Danny. That's how Kyle got here. Like everybody that worked in the shop got hired in that way. So we did that here last night and put it together. We promoted. I mean, we talked about it we had initially launched about a month ago. We did some social media stuff. It is Christmas right now, so it's a little tough. We had one person show up.
Well, two. Just one showed up at the end.
Holy shit, was that a like?
But also the responses you got, we got 100% attendance rate from the responses.
It was just such wind out of my sails of being like,
yeah, that one hurt, Max.
That hurt. That really hurt to be like, nobody wants to work here, or do we just not market it well, or what did we like? Anyway, so back to the drawing board. We're going to try something else. We're going to keep sharing those things. I still think the model worked for me before. I don't know why it didn't work this time. Maybe it was timing. Maybe it is 6 years later. I mean, but man, that sucked.
But it's also, I mean, it's more than 6 years later, because when's the last time you had your last hiring event before you sold?
I mean, we had them twice a year. So it was like 6 months.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we did them all the time. We did them all the time. But like maybe, I don't know, maybe people didn't know about it. So hey, if you want to come work here, if you want to come work in Moto Julia, let us know.
But I also think like I said, it is Christmas, and we didn't promote it. Well, we intended to promote it a month out, or maybe even a little more than a month out, but not being social media savvy, apparently there's an algorithm, and you can't just like throw things up on to social media. So we send it out to people, and they schedule it going out. But I don't think it really went out in any real form other than maybe emails from CRC
Yeah.
on social media and stuff until like a week out.
Yeah.
So
we
it was
just didn't have
short.
enough
It was
lead.
short notice, I think, and it's Christmas.
So if you're going to do a hiring event,
Don't do it at Christmas.
don't do it at Christmas. Do it longer than, I mean, promote the hell out of it for over a
for
month.
at least a month.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
at least a month. I mean, these were all good plans, all good ideas.
I mean,
and
if you
the
were having them
execution-
every 6 months before, in a sense, each one was a promotion for the next one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Show them that you didn't get hired, but you can always come back.
Yeah, well, no, just like
Maybe we'll like you
just
more
like
next
it,
time.
It happened, and there's another one in 6 months. So
Yeah.
you're already starting to promote the next one.
Yeah, come on. Come the
So
next one. Yeah.
promoting them for 6 months, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
It was a sad.
Yeah,
It was a
sad
great
for
guy.
you.
The
It wasn't-
one
it
guy
wasn't
that showed
It
up.
wasn't that sad for me. I actually didn't expect that many people to show up.
Great. Great. I'm glad your confidence was high.
Well, like I asked you earlier in the day, I'm like, has anyone even responded? And
Yeah.
there was two.
Yeah, it was
Two
two.
people showed up.
There we go. One very late.
One very
Yeah.
late.
Yeah, but hey, actually, the guy that came in on time was great. We really enjoyed talking to him. Really, really nice guy.
That's cool.
Everything's, we leave it all in their court. So it's literally like, hey, let us know if you want to work here now. Send us an email. Tell us how you would work in the organization, how you could like be a part of building the community and like next type of dealer, the dealership 2.0 that we're building. And so I'm hoping he writes back and we have an option there. But
he at least is going to become part of the community we're trying to rebuild,
yeah, exactly.
because he says he is a rider, and he mostly just rides alone. He doesn't.
Yeah. So he's looking for that
So
community.
he's looking for that community, and
maybe that's it. We
so-
just need to do more events where we just show behind the curtain. More tech talks, which we're doing.
Yeah,
More tech
think tech
talks,
talks.
more see what it's
I
like.
think tech talks are value. I think people like those, and then granted, not like the general public, but motorcyclists, whether they're mechanical motorcyclists or not, I think enjoy the tech talks.
Yeah, they like knowing what's behind it.
Mhm.
It's underneath it.
Mhm.
Right on. Well, we're going to have a lot more to continue to talk about and
Yeah.
share as we go through this. This is the end of the
This is
year, so we
just
got lots.
Part 2 of many.
yeah, we're not going to say how many, but eventually there'll be more. But yeah, once we start getting this selling process underway and we say, oh man, okay, the margin overall has taken a huge hit. Like that's something that's going to be a rework. Maybe that curve is a little different way, but we're not going to know until we start trying it and we
Yeah.
apply the concept.
Mhm.
We commit to the concept for at least this first 90 days
Mhm.
and see if it was the right move and then move on from there. And so, yeah, I think that's the whole point is let's use this place as a lab. Let's come up with the next processes, the new processes, the right tools. And
And I think having that visual, the tool being visual,
yeah,
also helps in marketing and promoting and selling the product, because you can see,
yeah,
you can look at that and see like, oh, I really need to sell this now.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the price is going to drop next month. That's going to hurt my margin. That's going to, if you're a salesperson and you work off a commission, it affects your commission.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
So I think it'll work, but we'll see.
Yeah, we're going to see.
It's not going to hurt. We're not going to do any worse.
Definitely not going to do worse than the unloading of vehicles we've had to do the last couple weeks. That
Although
is-
we did discover the ultimate strategy to sell bikes is to pay people to take them.
yeah. So if you would like to buy a motorcycle from us and
It
take
works
money,
100% of the time.
well, hopefully we won't do that too much longer. We'll get clean and we'll move on from there.
Yep.
So awesome.
All right.
All right, let's get
next
back to
time.
work. Yep.
See ya.
See ya.